Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Wintersinger, and so after my PhD work in William Shee's lab, I actually became Ben Reinhardt's first program manager at PARPA. And so what PARPA does is we are the Private Advanced Research Program Agency, a name that's subject to change. And what we're doing is we're trying to use private funding to run ambitious, coordinated, and focused research programs. And so with that in mind, what I'm going to tell you more about today is a key insight that's driving my work as a program manager now. And that's that the existing structures by which we discover and invent things, I'd argue they're ill-equipped to foster the development of complex biomolecular systems. And so academia, for instance, it's absolutely spectacular at sparking creative ideas, and it's led to a lot of the technologies that many of us in this room are familiar with, including structural DNA nanotechnology, DNA origami, a whole pile of different methods in supramolecular chemistry, and a number of different approaches for designing proteins. Beyond that, so it's even led to the development of proof of concept biomolecular systems, and these are a few examples that I find particularly inspiring, and they resulted in some really remarkable publications, but there hasn't been a lot of continuous refinement of these systems. And so I would argue that this stems from deep entrenched silos that exist in academia. And if you take a given investigator, typically they have one or two areas of core expertise, and they can expand upon this by hiring the right personnel or by taking the initiative to spark some inter-lab collaboration. But that doesn't really lead to the coalescence of a community around a new interdisciplinary research idea. And beyond that, academia is just, it is so focused on novelty. And this is problematic because while it incentivizes investigators to take the initiative to plant a first flag on new ideas, again, it struggles with sustained systems, sustained development and refinement of complex systems. And so, of course, there's other ways beyond academia for discovering and inventing things. But similarly, these two struggle to foster the development of complex biomolecular systems. And so if we take startups, for instance, they must be laser focused on a clear product or platform technology that has immediate commercial value. But many of the kinds of wonky systems that we can imagine, the road to like taking all these pieces and getting them to work together well, it's arduous and maybe not of the most immediate commercial value. So basically what PARPA aims to do, we're trying to bolster the existing structures in which we discover and invent things through two ways. So the first is funding of research programs that specifically target systems building, in my case, an interest in bionanotech. And in running these programs, a structure where there's an empowered program manager that is involved with the groups actually doing the work and trying to ensure that there's clear progress toward that systems goal. So with that in mind, I'll tell you a little bit more about a system that I'm particularly excited about, and that's the development of positional chemistry using using protein, nucleic acid, and other chemical elements. And so, just as inspiration for some of these ideas, the work of Eric Benson et al. Is recently published in Andrew Turberfield's group, and also as explored by my alma mater PhD lab and William Shee's group towards building these molecular 3D printers is something that kind of underlies a lot of the ideas in this presentation. And I'd also encourage everybody to look through your email and read Adam Marblestone's excellent bottleneck analysis on positional chemistry. He goes into a lot more depth of some of the issues and why this is an interesting problem to pursue. So with that in mind, how could we actually conceive of such a system in this space? So take for instance, we could envision a DNA origami frame that's bound to a DNA origami canvas. And this canvas, it could feature docking sites to immobilize and coordinate building blocks. And what I want to point out with these very, very tentative sketches here is that in developing this program, right now something that I'm looking for support on is trying to answer a lot of the open questions here. So for example, what should we actually make these building blocks from? We could imagine doing them with nucleic acids, other small molecule components, or perhaps designing them from some de novo protein design. But there's a lot of discussion and thought that has to go into this first. And so we can imagine that the interface between each of these building blocks could be designed in such a way that under select circumstances could be covalently linked to an adjacent building block. So for instance, in the case of a protein building block design, perhaps a complementary protein tool could be designed to bind to the interface between two building blocks, contorting them in such a way that that a covalent bond could be formed. And again, back to the open questions. One, in the case of a protein design, we could imagine that somehow there's cysteine residues hidden under some region, and then when this tool binds, it unlocks them to make a disulfide bond. But there's a whole panel of different chemistries that we need to be thinking about to fully explore this space. And so next we could imagine affixing this tool to a movable DNA origami arm so that the covalent bonds can be initiated from where and when we so desire. And what I want to point out is that positional chemistry, as I'm defining it here, it must be differentiated from templated synthesis. In that the way in which that linker tool binds here, it's much more. It involves contortions and precise positioning of these building blocks, and that it's much more nuanced in this sense, and much more akin to the way in which, say, a ribosome catalyzes protein synthesis. And so we could imagine now removing that DNA base, leaving us with an array of linked building blocks. This could have applications in therapeutics, or in the case of protein, potentially we could make an addressable protein canvas from only a small number of building blocks that could be used to do things like template enzymes to create enzyme factories for biomanufacturing. 2 seconds. And so to just wrap this up, I'm in the process now of looking for people that be interested in participating in a program like this. positional chemistry is something that I think could be particularly well suited to a coordinated PARPA program. But there's also a whole host of other ideas that I'm sure many of you in this room have. My contact details are here. If you have any interest in this, please chat with me, reach out to me, and thank you very much for your time.
So this might be for both you and Ben, but like, how is PARPA funded?
Very quickly right now, rich people. Next question.
So I understand the vision. I think the positional chemistry thing is something that all chemists want to do, right? So I think, and my question is, what is the bigger kind of vision? I don't buy the DNA fabrication vision, because I think that's not going to scale. But I do buy the positional control for new technologies. I think that's great. But chemists ultimately are doing things in the laboratory and requiring manual operations to make things, so do reactions, make bonds, then self-assembly, so use physics, right, and then read those things out. So I wonder if something that can encompass this would be that understanding of the ontology, the unit operations required, you know, if you want a systems thinking, from creating boring stuff that bonds, right, glues, and then using self-assembly. You don't just need to use DNA, you can use metal oxides, you can use lipids, you can use lots of things, and then to then fabricate that out and get a reasonable yield, and then close loop it. Problem is that I've been hearing these type of requests for many years, but there's no consistency that goes with them, no reproducibility, and then there's no killer app. And so I like the vision getting there. How would you envisage kind of getting sufficient problems that are not constraining you, but allow you to do new positional chemistry? Does that make sense?
Thank you for that. We need that. So the larger vision of this that I see is starting to pull these different especially academic silos closer together to actually try building a coordinated system that does positional chemistry. And I think just like a lot of the work that has gone into this to date has kind of fallen into individual labs to try forwarding some of these capabilities. But I don't think we've seen, like, especially with just recent developments in protein engineering, other branches of nanotechnology, structural DNA nanotechnology, a really coordinated effort to just focus on one system that takes some of these kind of separate silos and pulls them together. And delivering on the early promises of functional nanotechnology, I think this is a fascinating capability to show. The path to getting that to something that would be commercially useful and be the next billion-dollar company, that's a long road, and that's unclear. But that's exactly like why we're interested in funding this as PARPA. That it doesn't have to follow this template that like the perfect startup does, and we can explore some of these ideas in a safe space.